Hey guys, Rogues Guild here, and we're doing a deck profile over the deck that we just took in the Gauntlet. Cole O'Brien was actually piloting it. It was pretty cool. He decided to pilot some Frayla. So, what made you decide to play Frayla for the Gauntlet?
So, coming from a Magic background, I have, because this is especially true in Magic, but it's really true in all games, well, all card games, I guess. It's hard to say for all games, but I subscribe to the belief that the only life point that matters is the last one. And when Frayla was first spoiled, and I saw, this is a ruler that lets me draw cards at the cost of life, I'm all about that. Like, I love to draw cards.
So from that sense, are you looking at it more of a value-based deck, more of a control-based deck, rather than the aggro? Because I see a lot of aggressive cards in here.
Absolutely. I don't really like playing aggro a lot of the time because I feel like in a lot of games of aggro, you're not making complex decisions. It's, can I curve out faster than my opponent and kill them before they can do anything?
Right.
Or do they disrupt me long enough that I just fold? And I'm not really having to make a huge amount of choices.
Right.
Also, I just believe that playing this deck as a less aggressive version or a less aggressive style. You might not change the cards in the deck, but you change the way you play with them.
Right. So kind of looking at the list, it's a pretty common core for Frayla. You got 4 Majin Dark Elf, 4 Gravekeeper, 4 Assassin, 4 Lily. Obviously one of the better cards in the deck for sure. But something that's kind of interesting at the beginning is you only play 2 March of the Dead. A lot of people tend to play either a lot more March of the Dead, especially right now with Black being so aggressive and getting so many small bodies on board and getting a lot in grave early on. You would think you would see a higher count of March of the Dead. So why only 2 in there?
So March of the Dead is really good until it's not. Because if you have a Resonator or 2 in the graveyard that it can target, it's great. But this deck often doesn't. Especially if you've already, say, awakened a March in a turn or 2 before. Because in most games, every turn you're trying to buy back a dead Dark Elf, if you can. So you're emptying your graveyard that way.
Right.
And Lily also eats your Dark Elves very quickly to power herself up. And between those two, it can be hard to really get Resonators in your graveyard, especially if your opponent starts boarding into Evil Elemental Uprising, or if they play Viola, or something like that. It's hard. I think in the end, I may have made a mistake only playing 2. I think 4 absolutely would not have been correct. But 3 might have been better than 2.
Okay.
I'm not entirely sure about it.
And then you got some disruption in there with Sword of the New Moon, and then Scarlet's Vision. You were definitely talking about that. What matchup was it that you really managed to kind of swing it back in your favor with Scarlet's Vision? Wasn't that like the Keurig matchup on a Lily?
It helps a lot in Keurig, surprisingly, for a 3-cost card. And the matchup it was originally put in for was Ayu, although Ayu's not really a popular deck anymore. But it was because this deck literally could not beat Ayu before you had Scarlet's Vision, assuming the Ayu player didn't absolutely punt or just play horrendously.
Right.
Because you had no way of interacting with their J Ruler other than hoping they don't kill you one turn and swinging your Joan into it.
Yep. Seems fair. And it's also kind of a cool little Gil out, so it helps against Gil, helps against the other matchups. And then for those of you that don't know, Scarlet's Vision says that the Resonator winds up dealing its damage, so then it actually triggers all of Lily's drain stacks. Which is
so
sweet.
Triggers the drain stacks, it triggers -1/-1 counters from Joan.
Yep.
And great.
Then especially since it's so easy to give barrier to Lily off Lily's Protector, it makes it where it's actually really hard to interact with. While in other decks, like let's say in the Lucifer deck, the only way they can protect the Resonator that they're giving Scarlet's Vision to is usually by using discard to knock out like the counter threats out of their hand before doing it.
Yeah, absolutely. That is one of the reasons it works so well, is because you can just say, I'm giving my Lily barrier, and your opponent needs to have an additional effect. It's really tempting to give your Lily barrier at the start of your turn and then try and go for it, but I would recommend avoiding that most of the time.
Yep. Kind of opens
chances
yourself
are your
up to
opponent
things, yeah.
A, doesn't have enough kill spells, and B, doesn't have enough will to actually cut through a couple Lily's protective triggers.
Right. And then, of course, you've got the 4 Jean to kind of go with the whole aggro theme, and 4 Faith in the Darkness. So I've seen some lists, specifically like the aggro Lucifer list, taking Faith in the Darkness out of the deck, feeling that it's not really necessary, and it's just kind of like a lesser value card. So how do you feel about it in Frayla, since you actually keep the 4?
Lucifer has a few more options than Frayla does, because he doesn't need to play the Dark Elf package to make his deck work. And very importantly, you need to see your Lily in almost every game. Now, one of the ways you can find it is naturally drawing it. You can also Gravekeeper it to your graveyard. Faith in the Darkness is the third way of finding it. If Keurig was not so prevalent as a just, maybe not the best deck, but a deck that will tear you a new one if you're not careful,
Yep.
I probably wouldn't play 4 Faiths. I might not play Faith at all. But you really need to see your Lily against Keurig.
Yeah, unfortunately. And then you've got 3 Ray in there to kind of round out too. Just another nice 2-drop. Stone count is pretty simple for Null Magic Stone, 2 Demonic Soul Stone for that endgame burn, and then the 4 Stone from the Dark Castle for some mystery counters. Just the best Black Stone.
Classic black stuff.
Yeah. And then you've actually got a Rune deck, and you have the possibility of siding into Lucifer in your side deck. So what was the reasoning behind that? What matchups do you actually want to side into Lucifer for?
There's only one matchup, and it is the Machines matchup. Specifically, mono-blue Machines. If they're, say, like green-blue diversity Machines, they are a little more awkward, and you don't necessarily need to sideboard into Lucifer. Okay. But mono-blue Machines is just so hard to fight because you don't really play a lot of Resonator interaction in your deck compared to, say, a normal Lucifer deck, a Gil deck, a Keurig deck. They can just snowball out of control with their Vivians and Lancelots.
Right.
And when they finally mystery box you, it's really nice to have something like Jet Black Wings if you haven't used it yet.
Okay.
Or really, the goal is hopefully when they're going to mystery box you, you haven't used your Jet Black Wings and Ruined Earth if you don't have a Belial in hand, and then you can just wipe their board and actually kill off their Misty Dragons in the process.
All right. That's cool. So for the Gauntlet, you played round 1 against Gil, which unfortunately you got 2-1'd by Gil. How is the Gil matchup for you? Because it seems to be pretty back and forth depending on certain things.
It's so, like all of Gil's matchups, if the Gil player does not play well, you're certainly going to win because that deck is enormously difficult to play. I didn't think it would be quite as bad as it was, especially when you called non-green stones in 2 games as your first stone.
Yep. 20 stone deck, only 2 off-color stones. Gotta get it. First stone.
I didn't ever manage to pull off a Scarlet's Vision on the Gil, which is one of the ways you can beat the Gil player if they don't know you're playing it. Because a lot of the time, Gils are going to Judgment and then immediately find they're going to Judgment as soon as they have 3 will. And then they're going to do whatever they want to do. They can either search for their Gentle Breeze or not, but it doesn't really matter. But if they do that and you have, say, a Lily in play, and they search for Gentle Breeze, you can tack your Lily into their Gil. They'll probably let you pump up your Lily a bunch, then search for either Arrival or the buff.
Yeah.
Either way, it doesn't really matter because you can give your Lily Barrier, and when it comes to Arrival, and if they buff their Gil, then you can Visions your way through it because now your Lily's even larger and essentially gets to hit it twice. Alternatively, if they can't deal with your Joan, then you get to just put 11 -1/-1 counters on their Gil.
Seems good.
Which probably wins the game. I would hope.
I would assume so.
But it's unreliable, and the Gil player can certainly play around it. You probably get to steal 1 game off of it if you're lucky, but you're kind of on your own for the other 2.
And then round 2, you played against Hanzo and you 2-0'd that, right? Seemed like a really easy matchup for you, which is surprising.
Hanzo is the best matchup for this deck.
Which is actually surprising because it seems like with all their disruption, with Lorite, with Viola, with being able to side into Black Tears and Evil Elemental Uprising, and then having like Sandstorm Rapid Fire, which literally wipes your board. It feels like that would have been a really unfavorable matchup for you, and yet you still 2-0'd it.
It's weird that it's a favorable matchup. Part of it is that their fairy spells are pretty bad in this matchup because they're only countering a 1-cost spell most of the time, which is Sword of the New Moon. Partially, it's just that Hanzo isn't really good at dealing with a deck that draws 2 cards per turn.
That's true. He does lose value really quickly.
Yeah, and like he has a lot of tempo through his Jizos and like through the Rapid Fire Sandstorm, but he's not as fast as Keurig, and you actually have time to get your value engine running.
Okay.
So,
and then round 3 you played against Machines, and that was some of the best mystery boxes I've ever seen.
Oh yeah, I thought I had him game 1, and then that mystery box, and I don't remember if it was game 2 or game 3. It was just brutal.
Yep. He got like a double Mosa, double Lance, and then a Vivian off one of them, or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, it was just like, I was just like, that was the best mystery box I have ever seen.
Yeah, it really carries that deck sometimes. It's pretty cool. And then
absolutely.
Round 4, you played against Keurig, which we had actually done some testing prior to the Gauntlet, and it seemed that Frayla and Keurig were pretty even with each other. I actually really liked that matchup a lot, considering how pivotal Lily was and how problematic it could actually be for Keurig, thinking, oh yeah, like you've got Path Report and Dragon Palm, and you've got ways to interact with Lily, but at the same time, like he's just got an activate effect barrier, not including the possibility of having a Ray that transforms into a 0 on board to be able to protect Lily, and one swing with Lily, as everyone saw in game 3 of that match, just how it completely swings. Oh well, it completely swings favor of that matchup into Frayla if she can just get one Lily poke through.
Yeah, if Lily ever gets to deal damage, you almost always win, because Lily can play aggressively. You don't need to play in a controlling style.
Yeah.
Against Keurig, you almost never. Honestly, you should just never do it, and you'll probably do better than trying to figure out when to do it. Like I think I'd do better if I just never used Frayla's ability to return Dark Elves. But if you can actually get in with Lily, like even just like an extra 14 life from just 2 triggers is normally enough to get you there.
Yeah.
And the Keurig matchup, I was surprised I lost so badly. I think part of it was it's been a while, and
the Gauntlet,
I didn't mulligan or sideboard correctly, and partially because it's late in the Gauntlet, I'm kind of just tired.
Yeah.
One of the things I did in that matchup is I sideboarded into discard, and I sideboarded out my Scarlet's Visions. I definitely should not have done that, because Scarlet's Vision gives you an extra way to trigger your Lily.
Right.
And if they Path Repart your Lily when you try and drain your way through, because most Keurigs, what they're going to do is they're going to let you try and trigger your drains. So they're going to let you attack. Then they're going to say, okay, no blocks or whatever. And then you go, I try and give her drain. They're like, okay, I'll try and palm her. It's like, okay, well, I'll try and give her drain again. Okay, well, I'll try and Path Repart her. Okay, well, I'll give her barrier. And then it's like, okay, well, I try and Path Repart her again.
Yep.
And you're like, oh, shit. But if you have the Scarlet's Vision, you can actually just go, well, in response to that, I'll Scarlet's Vision and still get a bunch of life.
Right. Since those are all 0 will effects, it makes it really easy to kind of bait out all of Keurig's will, and then you can actually use your will for the turn to just play a Scarlet's Vision, and then just take it from there. So it's pretty cool. Plus it pumps her up and allows all those drain triggers to actually heal for way more than it's supposed to. But like you said, also 1400 is usually just enough, so it doesn't really matter that you're healing double the amount. All you need is that initial 1400, and you can kind of get there. And then,
it certainly does get in the head of your opponent, though, if you can do that to them game 1 or something, because they're going to see you gain 40 life off of this Lily, and then they're going to be obsessed with killing it, which is in some ways correct. They do need to care about it, but sometimes they'll put so much effort into killing it, they don't kill you.
Yep. And then the final round, what was that against? I'm trying to remember.
That was against Lucifer.
Lucifer, right, against Patrick Ogrintz. So
Yeah.
you completely stomped him that first game, but then what happened after that? What happened in game 2 and 3?
So in game 1, he didn't draw his discard, which I think isn't as damaging against Frayla as it would be against other decks, because Frayla, especially early game, kind of wants you to discard her cards so she can just like freely get them back.
Right.
But so game 2, I actually punted a little bit. Part of it is I was much more prepared for and in the mindset of playing against aggro Lucifer, since I'm going to say this now, I don't believe Control Lucifer is nearly as strong in general. I think in the mirror, I think it has some much stronger matchups for itself, but in general, I think it loses to more men.
It's pretty interesting how you actually need to play aggressively in the entire spread in order to do well, but then the moment Lucifer starts doing well and everybody starts playing Lucifer, you've actually got to slow down and
control Lucifer, because that beats aggressive. Yeah, so I was expecting more of a Control Lucifer, like Sheik's list that got first. But so maybe I wasn't playing as carefully around control, and also this deck wasn't quite as value-oriented as it might have needed to be. But I should have known that when he Demon Divisioned, he's almost certainly getting an Evil Elemental Uprising. Yeah. That is the one card he's looking for, especially post-Game 1, because they might not main it Game 1, but especially post-Game 1, it's probably Evil Elemental. So when I glint, that is what I should be naming, not a card I can see.
Right.
Because truthfully, any other card doesn't really matter. And if I can stop them from Evil Elementaling my graveyard, then my Lilies still are powerful. I'm still drawing 2 cards per turn, and I'm probably alright. But it felt like both games that I lost as soon as I got Evil Elemental.
Yeah. Yep, and that's kind of what really impacted you in the Gil matchup too. Evil Elemental really puts a number on Frayla.
Yeah, I'm not especially sure what the correct answer to that is, but I think boarding into like 4 glints Game 2 might be a good strategy if you were interested in playing Frayla.
That's an idea.
Because, I mean, Glint is already a good card, and you play Mystery Counter Stones, so you might get to buy it back, and Glinting Evil Elemental, like when you play Glint, especially if it's blind, most people are not just going to like pop their Evil Elemental in response unless it's like a really good time to do it.
Right.
Like if you just have like 3 Dark Elves in your grave, they might just go, well, he's blind. Like, especially, even better, if it's not blind, if I know like 1 or 2 of the cards in your hand and I don't know the Evil Elemental, you're going to assume I'm not going to name that.
Right.
But I probably should be naming that.
So, overall, how do you feel about Frayla in this meta right now?
So, Frayla's definitely not a tier 1 deck. I'll say that much for sure. But I think Frayla's better than, honestly, the showing I gave her was. It's been a while since I've played Frayla competitively, at least. And also just, I find Gauntlet's really stressful. More stressful than playing in a GP, so I think I maybe didn't play as well as I could have. Like, when I'm on stream, I feel like I'm getting judged.
Yeah.
But, would I recommend you bring this deck to a GP if you are someone who likes playing Frayla and is good at it? Depends. Do you want a top 8, or are you gunning for an invite? If you're looking for an invite, don't bring this deck. You're almost certainly not going to get first with it. You're either going to lose to a bad matchup when someone who's good at the deck plays against you, or something will go wrong. But like most of the time, like there's going to be a deck out there that's just set up to beat yours, and you're not going to be able to beat them, and it's probably going to be Gil. And Gil's probably going to do pretty well, and you're going to have to fight them for the invite. If you just want to top, I think you have an alright chance of topping if you play this deck well, because it does a lot of the same things Lucifer does, honestly, and is better in some ways and worse in others. I think it's a lot better against Keurig than Lucifer is, as
Lucifer
a Keurig
shouldn't
deck
be
that's
winning any
built
games against Keurig.
to beat, a Keurig player that knows what they're doing and has built their deck to deal with Lucifer should never lose to Lucifer. Well, maybe 10% against aggro Lucifer, but against control Lucifer, they should never lose.
Yeah.
So, you know, this deck is really for an older meta. It's really good against Hanzo. When people are playing Hanzo, when this was Hanzo meta, this would be a great deck to bring because you'll just crush them.
Yeah.
When it was Keurig meta, it would be a great anti-Keurig deck to bring and maybe be 50-50 against Keurig. Maybe even better.
Mm-hmm.
But nowadays, the meta really, I think a lot of people are going to be bringing machines. I think a lot of people are going to be bringing Gil. I think
the popular ones right now are Lucifer, Gil, Hanzo, and machines.
Yeah.
Those seem to be the big ones. Brunhild's still kind of there, but it's not topping like it should be. And so I think people are slowly losing favor in it more and more and more as time goes on because it's not topping very well. Especially if you separate, I believe, the Eastern Asian events were the ones that actually allowed Brunhild to get the majority of its tops for this season. And if you take that out, like Brunhild only has like a couple tops this entire season. So.
Yeah, I'm mainly thinking about US meta as well. It is very meta dependent. If you are going to a meta where you predict a lot of Hanzo decks, bring this deck and crush them.
Mm-hmm.
Or bring Gil. You'll probably win as well with Gil, honestly.
Gil does good things.
Yeah, this deck is a lot easier to pilot than something like Gil.
Oh yeah,
I would say. Like that is one of the reasons to play it, and especially if you're going to a GP event. Even if you're a great player, even if you're great at Gil, don't underestimate your play mistakes you're going to make round 8.
Yeah.
Like, it's been a long day. You've had to actually think in most of your matches, probably.
Yeah.
Whereas this deck, you don't have to think sometimes.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks for getting on here. Thanks for giving us a deck profile and telling us how you feel about the deck. I appreciate it, man. And
yeah, thanks for interviewing me. I think
awesome job with the Gauntlet. So.
Yeah, thanks. It was scary.
All right. Thanks, guys, for tuning in. Hope to see you next time.
Thank you.